Well, if you're wondering who laser power, laser light, the light up figures of He-Man and Skeletor are, well, I guess you've kind of come to a right place. I'm Scott Toy Guru Neitlich. I was the brand manager for the Classics line, and this is the story of the Classics version of these characters. All right. So yeah, seeing He-Man in all blue isn't something a lot of us are used to because they're not his traditional colors of kind of red and silver. But yes, this was a vintage figure, which meant it was going to get reproduced in the Classics line over my, railroad infested body. We were going to get all these classic figures made, and we did. We got all the variants made. And if you're saying, what variants? I don't remember Laser Power He-Man, Laser Light Skeletor. Well, if you were not in the US, you may not have. They were only released overseas. Having all of the variants of our main character of He-Man was something that we had promised we would get if people supported the subscription. It was very much a literal carrot. We said we're going to get to all the variants. So I was really proud when we finally did get to the laser figures, the light-up figures, we called them. And while their vintage designs did go on to inspire a lot of work on new adventures, because you can imagine the tail end of Masters of the Universe and the He-Man New Adventures line really overlapped, so that's why you saw things like early laser light Skeletor concepts winding up in New Adventures. So yeah, there's definitely a bleed over there. But let's get back to the Classics line, which was the modern update of all of these figures, regardless of where they were from. And if you had these figures as a child, congratulations, you probably did not live in the US. And that's okay. A lot of figures, like Yak Face, and they become part of pop culture, those ones that we couldn't get. And that's why these figures wind up going for big bucks these days, because of their limited release, due to the brand faltering at retail at the US market due to an overproduction of C and D level characters and not enough of the core A-list characters. But that's a YouTube video for another time. Updating them into classics wasn't that hard because it really required new armor on kind of existing figures, although they did get new heads. We'll get into that. But I think especially one of the things is that they did have a light-up feature. The only figures to have that, and one of the only figures to have the, if you will, action feature of their vintage counterpart. Why were we able to do that with this set and not others? Well, there actually is a reason. It wasn't just because we loved fans more or were willing to go the extra mile suddenly. No. Well, let's look at why these figures were created. Originally, when the movie came out in '87, the Dolph Lundgren film, He-Man was at the top of the world, and it looks like this was going to be the next major thing until it wasn't. But it looked like this might reignite the brand at retail, which was faltering at the time. So releasing these new versions of the core characters was done to both have a really dynamic action feature that would stand out, but they were also meant to be movie versions of the characters. So yeah, if you look carefully at kind of the head sculpt, while it's not quite the Dolph Lundgren figure maybe we all have always wanted, and people will continue to, I think, probably want a perfect version of the movie one, which still hasn't been done because it's only based on concept art. But yes, both of the light-up figures were designed to work with the movie as part of the promotion until the movie didn't really do too well and orders got canceled and they only shipped overseas. But yes, that is exactly why they do have a resemblance to the movie. And, obviously there was big light-up moments, so it worked well. I'm not going to quote the line here. It's been quoted too many times. We never quite got a vintage exact version of He-Man for the movie, and honestly, this is the kind of thing I'd love to see from Mattel Creation. They've done it for Masterverse, but it'd be fun to see that in Origins. All right, again, a YouTube video for another time. The point being is this was the closest the vintage line came to having an '87 movie He-Man and Skeletor to go along with Blade, Gwildor, and Sorod. And updating them into the Classics line meant that we could review their importance and the fact that they, were the only figures with light-up accessories. They were obviously deluxe figures back in the day and would be again. The reason that we were able to do the feature, and so many figures couldn't have their action feature, is because it was entirely enclosed inside of their accessory. So, well, in this case, Skeletor had clear plastic in his arm, but the actual electronics and all of that could be done in the back. It didn't require a different mechanism inside of the body. So just like with the vintage figure, where the batteries went inside of an extended backpack, we could pull off the same basic concept and not interfere with the sculpt of the figure. The rule was sort of, we would do action features or homages as long as it didn't interfere, like have a giant trigger sticking out of the back. And it felt like these figures really needed to light up in order to have really the, I guess, true nature of, the importance of them and the fact that they were so collectible back in the day. One thing that didn't make it in was the second head. So yeah, there was a head that looked like Dolph Lundgren, and there was also, the figure was released with the traditional He-Man head, albeit with blonder hair, or maybe more yellowy hair. And I really wanted to do both heads, but unfortunately, they only did the, I guess, Dolph Lundgren-y head. And you will notice there's a big spot in the back there with like nothing in it. There was supposed to be another head that was included in this pack, and that was this one. So this is where the snake head from King Hsss from 2000X, the more expanded snake head, was supposed to ship. Fans may recall when we put them out earlier in the year as sub-bait, and the promise was made that you would get all of the parts needed to make 2000X King Hsss by the end of the year. And even at that time, by end of the year, I knew that in December, which was the last pack, when we got to the laser figures, the light-up figures, that was when King Hss's torso was going to ship. And it was going to be kind of a nice bow at the end of the year to bring everything together. So, unfortunately, after I left, the plans to include this somehow got missed, and it never happened. And I think my passion for doing this is, one, I love the 2000X series, and it also made King Hsss the way he was always supposed to be. I had conversations with many of the designers from the 80s at both conventions, and like Martin Areola still worked at Mattel. And we talked about how the vintage design was meant to be like this. They just couldn't pull it off, and they were really disappointed with the figure. It's one of the figures that almost all the vintage designers talk about being disappointed in, and even the new 2000X figure really had kind of the same just sort of snap-on parts, and didn't quite have, even Origins, that, giant feel that we always wanted. Even the original release of Classics, which mimicked the original vintage figure, didn't quite pull this off. So another head, another torso piece was always wanted, and this was kind of the grand plan to pull it off. We couldn't fit it into the Snake Armor, Battle Armor, King Hsss pack, but again, we had planned out from kind of day one that it was going to go in the December pack. Mattel made up for this by putting it out as I think like a $15 figure the next year, complete with a Snake Man Warrior bottom half, so it could sort of be a whole figure into itself, and not just a torso or headpiece as it was intended to ship, which, hey, now you got another figure. Yay! Again, YouTube video for a whole other time, and something I wasn't involved in, because according to the plans that I had, it was going to ship with the laser figures as that's why they were also more expensive, because you were paying for the lights and that torso. It was all baked into the P&L, and why did I do it? Because I'm crazy, because I love 2000X, because I thought King Hsss deserved a better looking figure, and finally one that was in his full glory and not just obedient to Robin Hood. And everyone knows I have a thing for King Hsss, but not that Hsss. So yeah, we tried. Well, we succeeded. It did come out, just not the way, wanted it to. But hey, you want to make an omelet, you're going to break a few light up figures, and apparently some King Hsss head pieces too. Oh well.